Welcome back to the Mina Show featuring Lenny, the only NFL podcast where one of the hosts wonders, was Bo Nix named after Obama's dog? I mean, the timing kind of lines up, right? He's the most famous Bo in our house. That's Lenny, not me. I'm Mina Kimes, and I'm joined today on this three-man weave of a podcast by the hosts of the new Football 301 podcast from Yahoo Sports, Nate Tice and Charles McDonald. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us. Yeah,
I was about to ask who goes first.
I know.
I'm
went left to
introduce you
right.
guys. Yeah, that's
based
a
on
good way
how
to
I
do it.
see
Generally.
us. So, I guess stage. Yeah, there we go. Go this way. But
There we
yes,
go.
that's where I went. But yes, for anyone watching this.
Yeah, so Football 301.
It just sticks the landing. Great
Normally
start.
a two-person show. But no, I'm really excited for you guys, obviously. This was the summer of podcast movement. It's like the great free agency NFL podcast summer of 2024. Charles, can you tell people a little bit what to expect out of Football 301?
Yeah, so Nate is like the main host on this show, and we do a three-man rotation basically with our other coworker, Matt Harmon, who you can hear on the Yahoo Fantasy Football podcast. And basically, it's what we talk about on Twitter, right? It's a lot of scheme analysis. It's a lot of analytic stuff, and then there's some dumb, jokey stuff along the way. So if you've been following me and Nate for a while, or been following our work and see how we interact with each other, I feel like you got a pretty good idea on what the pod's going to be about. It's been a lot of fun so far. I hope that's not just me, saying that.
Don't worry, I end every show saying fun show, good show, stupendous show. Just fake it till you make it, will it into existence. No, but it's been great because Matt brings a great angle, not just fantasy stuff, but all overall ball knowledge, and it's great when he kind of pulls at some threads that are kind of fun, especially if it's Deontay Johnson is the most important player in the NFL this season, which I just love. But no, me and Charles have a lot of fun on it, and yeah, we do some deep dives. I'm excited for the season to start. It was nice having some preseason games to kind of react to just personally, not even on Twitter or anything, just to watch some stuff. But also that's what I'm excited for the season, to recap games, preview games for the season. Once we get into that rhythm, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Well, you mentioned it. We actually have football to talk about, which is why I'm excited to have you guys both here because we got week 1 of preseason in the books, and what I'm going to focus on today with the both of you is the performances of the rookie quarterbacks, first round rookie quarterbacks. We're also going to get to the quarterback battles that are going on, which sort of involve the rookie quarterbacks, at least one of them. One of them I do feel like is a legitimate quarterback battle. So we'll talk about that. People can guess which one I'm talking about there, involving
Atlanta.
A rookie.
No.
But oh God. But before we get to that, I do want to address a piece of NFL news that broke right before we went on NFL Live today. Haason Reddick, who it's been kind of funny to talk about the Jets all off season and say, yeah, and I guess, Haason Reddick, he's in Japan on this weird side quest, but he'll be there at some point. No, he won't. Well, at least I don't mean to say he won't, but he is saying he won't because he is saying he wants a trade request. The Jets immediately put out a pretty aggressive statement saying, that's not going to happen, buddy. You gotta show up. What I found interesting about this, Charles, and you've covered the Jets, you know this team very well, is the backstory that led to this moment, which is to say the Jets traded for Haason Reddick from the Eagles and let Bryce Huck walk, who then went and signed with the Eagles, knowing that in Philadelphia he was agitating for a trade, a new contract. Sorry, and yet Adam said on NFL Live they've had no contract talks whatsoever, in part because he hasn't been in the building, I guess. I don't really know why that matters with the player, because the agent, whatever. Anyway, so, I mean, what is your read on this situation, and how important is Haason Reddick to this Jets defense?
Well, first, let's start off with how important he is. I think he's tremendously important to what they plan on doing this year, because if you're Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, the last few years haven't gone as planned. We know that they were on the hot, warmish seat towards the end of last year, but they decided to bring everybody back, right? So you are all in, as all in can be. Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback. He's 40 years old. You signed a bunch of high risk, veterans who have been injured over the past few years. This is it for, this regime. So they have to get him in the door. And also, like you said, they lost Bryce Huff. Will McDonald still developing. Jermaine Johnson's probably like a secondary edge rusher. So once you get past Quinnen Williams, the Jets' defensive line is not quite maybe as deep as they were over the past few years. So they need him. Now, the fact that we're here, I don't like saying this, but like it's just peak Jets, you know, like because how many times have we had a situation over the past few years where a team has made a trade for a veteran for a not insignificant price, like a second round pick or a third round pick, and when has that deal like ever not gotten done? Usually they're done before the trade even goes through because, you know, teams and players are negotiating with agents and stuff like that. So the fact that we're even here is kind of baffling. And I don't know where this goes next because I can't get into the mind of someone who can stomach losing millions of dollars in fines over the first couple of weeks of the season. I'm not built like that. I would have quit this a long time ago. So I would say, sure, we should expect still Haason Reddick to get into the Jets building at some point, but the man's blowing, you know, last we checked over the past weekend, it was up to $2.5 million in fines. So I can't guess how far someone is willing to take that when that is where they currently find themselves.
Just hits different.
Yeah.
I just keep coming back to Charles and I talked about because we were talking ranking top 10 defenses like every pod, but it's, you know, put our spin on it. But we're talking about the Jets is that defensive line is their backbone.
Yeah.
And that's the team. Like that's the identity. The defense overall has been recently, but the defensive line, especially because that was like an elite pass rush. One that it stands out over even just recent years. They could always rely on that. That was the equalizer for them. I mean, just keep whatever platitudes you want to throw out there. So his agent better be right. And Douglas, this bet better be right because especially it's just the optics don't look great when Huff just replaced Reddick in Eagle Land. Like that just kind of doesn't look great either. That it's like, well, why don't you just work it out with a homegrown guy? Don't you want to reward that anyways? And you could have saved the pick, especially if this all goes right. Wouldn't you want that more cheap talent, especially if the pay guys? Like, yeah, there's so many arguments about the downsides with this, but I just think even Charles kind of referred to it, but I felt anyways this pass rush was going to go from maybe elite to good to very good, and that matters because we don't know what the offense is going to be. It could have some high highs, but it's fragile. It's very just the whole ecosystem of the offense. But also just the defense, I think naturally is going to take a step back. You're losing maybe some back end safeties or just there's some change up there, even though the corners are awesome. The linebackers are cool. It's just like, it felt like it was going to take a step back and this just doesn't help. So it's like, get it done. Has to get done.
I do think it'll get done at some point, or he'll just show up and eat it and it won't get done. I don't know, but I know, right? But just on the football side of things, when I was doing talking about the Jets for my AFC East preview, I think what struck me, and for the top defenses pod, because, you know, like I'm sure you guys, I had them in the top. They're one of the best defenses in the NFL. They're awesome. They're not deep, though. I think that's what struck me looking at the depth chart, really at all three levels. And when you got a defense like this one, that's pretty simple. Line them up. You know, it's they don't blitz. You're just playing zone behind that, playing a lot of quarters. And if you take out one piece of that, and you can't get that kind of pressure with four, everything kind of gets a little bit shaky. I liked what I saw from Jermaine Johnson last year, but I kind of agree with Charles' assessment. So I think I'll just kind of wrap by saying, Reddick to me it's funny because we're talking about a great defense. And so in some ways it feels weird to say he's more important to them than he would be to another team. But I think because of the nature of that defense, and then as Charles laid out, the all-in nature of this team, he does have actually a little bit of leverage over them, even if financially they have all the leverage in the world.
Yeah. Pass rusher went from want to a need for the first time for them in a while. Like it went from like, oh, this is fun to splurge on to like, oh shoot, we need this guy.
Right. And they've been drafting guys and like, they don't have to play. Will McDonald, whatever. He's next man up. Yeah, it's interesting. All right, that's it for Reddick. I think he'll show up. I don't know. I mean, maybe just because
I think he will too. He's got a lot of fines to pay back the NFL. He needs game checks.
I can't even imagine walking away from the amount of money
somehow.
I know those katanas or whatever he was holding.
Yeah.
This custom ceremonial armor that doesn't buy itself. I saw one photo of him. He had a Shogun summer. Okay, let's talk about the rookie quarterbacks. Lenny just walked in. By the way, actually, you know, I've gotten some complaints lately that Lenny hasn't been showing his face. Areas. Okay.
Hey,
So,
Lenny.
hey, all right. So let's just go in draft order, if that's all right with you guys. And let's start with Caleb Williams, who we got to see a little bit of from, more certainly than we did from Drake Maye and Jayden Daniels. I guess I'll start first, then maybe Nate, you can weigh in. As advertised is what I wrote down. As advertised. I mean, he showed us what we saw in college, which is he has literally every club in the bag when it comes to throws. The playmaking, obviously the off-platform stuff, the screen, the throw he made rolling to the right, so gorgeous. But the throw that I can't get out of my mind is his first throw, the third down throw to DJ Moore. Watching that the next day from the end zone view, seeing his helmet just go from right to left, and then just firing in that laser, knowing that Moore was, the best option and one who could move the chains. That's just the primo stuff right there. I mean, you never want to overreact, obviously, preseason week 1. But Nate, like, if I'm a Bears fan, I'm over the moon with this first outing.
It's everything you want to see. The some ad lib stuff, but also just even he got underrated like this coming out of college just because of how it looked at USC. But he's just so clean, and that's what was really cool. You mentioned the third down throw. There was others, even just a bootleg where he's out of, looks out of structure, but it's still within the structure of what a naked bootleg is. He's progressing on it and throws an over that gets dropped. But it's just, he's progressing quickly. He's understanding it. He handled the screen pass where he throws the trick shot. He handled a pre-snap play change on that. The Bills were bringing a blitz. I don't know if it was package or he could do this at any time, but it's still good to see pre-snap operation in a first preseason game. And even stuff like, this is just so like just corny quarterback stuff, but like the handoff mechanics are clean. Like he does the fake with the head. I'm gonna tweet it later, and y'all get what I mean. It's just very like high school, how you're taught like as a ninth grader, and it's like I don't know. I actually kind of was digging it that the number 1 pick was like, hey, even though it does the flashy stuff, he's still doing like the fundamentally sound like I'm gonna look in the play fake and all those types of things because those things add up.
I think if you're watching Caleb Williams this weekend, and let's say you flip it from the former quarterback perspective to or maybe a former defensive player perspective, I would be terrified like every week because I think the rollout throw, the third down throw, where it's like, all right, we got him in a space, let's close and get after him and maybe force a bad pass. But no, he's throwing lasers. And he's throwing stuff under pressure, which I think is what's so interesting about this past weekend, because I feel like that's one of the areas where rookies tend to struggle. You get under pressure against big NFL players, and they're way faster than you've ever seen, even the backups like this past weekend. But no, he still was out there making plays, cool, calm, and collected. And I think that it's funny, like when you look back in the Bears drafted him, I think the first week of May, they're like, yeah, this is our starting quarterback. We're not even going to mess around with this. And you got to see really easily why. And obviously it'll get harder when the starters get out there, but obviously he showed he belongs and he's got the talent and the accuracy and just the pinpoint decision making. There'll be hiccups at times because he's going to try stuff.
Yeah.
But still, this is
He almost got picked once. Like he threw he threw a sail ball that he shouldn't have, but it was still like, all right, he's got plenty of arm. And pinpoint's a perfect word for him. You said it was his decision making, it's accuracy and decision making. Like he's pinpoint already. It's cool. It's good stuff.
Speaking of decision making, we didn't mention the scramble, and he talked about this after the game when he saw that they showed single high and then they spun to cover 2 man. So he just took off.
Mm-hmm.
I love that because Caleb Williams is not going to be, Justin Fields out there for Chicago when it comes to running the football, but he does have the mobility of like a Patrick Mahomes, and the fact that he sees that, he's decisive about it, is going to completely change the way defenses play them. He's not going to see a lot of cover 2 man. I'm not just saying because of one preseason rep, but because he has that ability to punish you with his legs. I don't know, man. Like just so much poise. We spent so much time this offseason talking about, there's these expectations, Chicago and the quarterback stuff. And everyone's talking about how great your circumstances are, the best ever for a number 1 overall pick. That dude didn't look like he had a care in the world out there. I'll just say that. Like he looked so calm.
Yeah, he really does. Watch him do 2 hands on the ball
I
It's
saw you
like
post that.
Oh,
it's
man.
hilarious, but he's like mechanically sound. I can't get over it. Like he's just like it's all the
Well,
creative stuff, but he's structurally sound.
right. Well, I think what's actually interesting about that is because he was billed as just like this chaotic ball of little fun
Yeah,
coming out of USC, and then you actually
Yeah.
start watching him, and you're like, oh no, this is a pretty
but
polished guy in terms of being able
my
to
high
play
end comp
quarterback.
was Breeze because that's what it was like. There's so much Breeze coming out of Purdue, I should say, because there's just all that in structure stuff you can do.
That's great.
Yeah,
I love that.
good stuff.
Okay. Well, I would say as advertised also kind of applies to Jayden Daniels because what we saw from him in very limited action, he only had one drive, was really similar to what we saw at LSU. I mean, he had one drive, he had 3 plays or 3 throws. He starts off, he sails the screen and then just getting into kind of the feel. And then he throws this absolute bomb to De'Ami Brown, who, by the way, excellent catch by him.
Yeah,
And that's when to monitor in terms of snaps in that offense, because I'm still holding on to my Brown shares. And after going back and watching Drake Maye, I was like, pardon me, going back and God, who was the Howell was the quarterback.
Sam Howell.
Yeah. Howell that one year. I was like, oh God, Diamond Brown's got something to him.
Go
But anyway, sorry, back to Jay Daniels. So he throws that bomb, and after the game, he talks about how he, checked into that. He saw something that he liked. And then at the goal line, he runs in a touchdown off of his own read. So that's all stuff we saw from him in college. And it looked like it did in college. He's just, when he's well protected and he was often well protected at LSU. He's a beautiful thrower of the football. It looks great. I mean, the ball placement on that throw was gorgeous. My only question is kind of like, okay, well, adversity, because I didn't really see that. But again, it's one drive. So, I guess the questions I had about Daniels aren't ones that I felt like I had, I got answers to maybe per se. But again, it's so little action, Charles. I don't really know how much you can take away from that other than that was a great throw.
It looked like you said. I think he looked how he looked at LSU, and I think after the game he said that like he had checked into the goal ball, which is also pretty on brand for what he did at LSU. Because it's always interesting to me when guys first get to the league and like you're kind of looking at constraints in the NFL versus what they saw in college football. And in college football, especially last year, if you're Jayden Daniels and you're looking at Malik Neighbors on the outside and Brian Thomas on the other side of the field, those are guys who both have like 4.2 speed, 4.3 speed. So yeah, I would be checked into a lot of goal balls too, because I know most of these guys out there can't cover him. And you got another one this week with De'Ami Brown against the Jets backup cornerback. I don't really know how much there is to glean like moving forward from this. To me, it was like, okay, the Jayden Daniels we saw last year is going to play the exact same way, which makes sense considering he spent so long in college. So I think it was encouraging that he didn't look like a complete lemon out there. But at the same time, this is just about what we should have been expecting from Jayden Daniels, excuse me. And I don't think it was like quite as wow to me as Caleb.
Yeah, I think that was he checked the boxes I want to see as far as like he looked like he was handling everything. Like you guys were talking about the checking into the go ball is also interesting because that was apparently he went rogue. It wasn't part of the play call. He truly was audibling, which is a I don't know. It's risky. It's and
I love
like
it. I don't care.
you don't really run all verts,
I love that
all
stuff.
verts out of empty too, which I thought was hilarious. And on it, I think he thought he was getting blitzed, and it turned out to be just cover one. And it's just like, but it's like still has an answer and everything. But you could also see like 2 guys were running into each other on the routes because they're like, sure, yeah, 5 verts, let's go out of empty, let's do it. But I think it perfectly summed up what I think this offense is going to be between him and Cliff and what they got, where it's going to be loose. There's going to be some real high highs because he's going to be launching stuff. He's going to be tacking on the outside. And I just think there's going to be stretches where maybe a little frustrating, maybe when they, get caught kind of going a little bit, loose with it, drawing some stuff up in the sand. But he's accurate. I mean, he threw even like a bubble throw that's accurate. I know that's a small thing, but he puts it right on the money.
I noticed that too.
He's a real accurate player. Yeah, real accurate thrower.
He is a great thrower of the football. I guess when I said like I didn't know if my question was like, okay, well, what's going to happen if he's under siege? I don't know. I mean, also, God, who was playing left tackle? It wasn't Brandon Coleman, and it wasn't Cornelius Lucas. Trent Scott. Sure,
yeah. Let's
man.
Go for it.
I remain. Some Commanders fans have weighed in and said, no, the offensive line is going to be fine. And that remains a major concern of mine. And that's not Daniel's fault. But what we saw was what we saw, which is when he's clean, he throws a beautiful, beautiful deep ball. Okay, Drake Maye, not much to talk about here. 3 handoffs, 3 throws. Saw him under center a little bit, which was interesting because that's something he's talked about wanting to work on this summer. That offense under Alex Van Pelt, he's going to be under center certainly a great deal more than he was in college. I actually would, I guess, ask you guys. So I'm not gonna concern troll Daniels and not. I'm gonna apply the same standard to Drake Maye. It worries me that the Patriots, I think, and you and I talked about this. I think that they are so worried about the offensive line that they don't want Drake Maye playing behind whatever backups or whatever 1s, 2s, or 3s out there. That I think is very concerning. And that is my number one concern. But not Drake Maye. I don't know when he's going to play. Whatever. That I think is a major issue for this team.
I gotta see it this game against the Eagles and see how it all looks before. But it is concerning because they are. God, who's the left tackle's name? I always play. It starts with a V, and I always just that's the point.
Oh, Vidarian or
yeah, that's the point of the exercise right here. Yeah, Vidarian Lowe. And so and that's concerns, or it's gonna be a rookie who's never played left tackle. But it's just they're trying to find their best 5. I'm encouraged about the offensive line coach. I do think he's a Callahan disciple, which is always going to get pique my interest a little bit. But I also I've heard good things. He has like a whole coaching system. So we'll see. Also, when I hear coaching system, piques my interest in maybe a negative way. So we'll see how that goes. But players like it, so maybe he gets the best out of them. They looked sound in the preseason game with Jacoby Brissett and Maye back there. Just their talent's not going to be great. But I do think they'll maximize whatever they got. I think this can be a run-first offense, which will take any load off of Maye and or Brissett. So I think you're justified in saying, and because I think it's the same way, they're not worried about Maye. I really don't. I think they think he's pretty advanced along, and you can see some quotes from some of their coaches. I think it's just all about the offensive line and how fragile it is, and they just don't want to develop scar tissue. Where it's just, I get that argument, but I want to see this week. I want to see the plan with the second preseason game, with the inter-squad practices that they're going to have with the Eagles, and then the game. I'll see how the stretch goes before I kind of go what are you doing or anything like that. Also, I can see why Belichick shushed the New England media for a long time, because now that the shackles have been taken off, oh my God, these guys is up and down. I know how they're like this with the Red Sox, but I forget about this with the Patriots. Wow, this is just the hot take city. It's just got Joe Milton. Why are we draft Drake Maye? Joe Milton. Let's go.
Yeah, we're not doing Joe Milton on the spot. All right, Charles. Can you share our concerns? Also, by the way, really, that's it. This applies again to Daniels and Maye. Come on, guys. Come on. I guess even more so for Maye, knowing that they plan on starting Brissett. Then why are you playing Bailey Zappi?
I was like, man, why do we need to see Bailey Zappi play at all?
So much.
Yeah.
Well,
but the way I
Zappi trade mate.
Oh yeah. Who are you gonna get there? Bill O'Brien, where he's at? He's in Boston College. That's perfect for Bailey Zappi, actually. Oh, that was rude. I did not say that.
No, it's fine. I've seen look at some of the backup quarterbacks in this league right now.
No, it's rough. It's rough.
Yes.
But with the Patriots, this offensive line, it is what it is, right? And they're pretty far away from having a good offensive line unless some things just change rapidly in a way that we weren't expecting, where maybe they make some big improvements right in this upcoming offseason 2025. So the way I feel about it is just it's going to be tough regardless. You might as well just go out there and play and sling it and see what happens, because this is a team that picked 3rd overall. It's not like they can be I guess delusional about how close or how far away they are. But the most important thing, I think, is being able to just evaluate Maye and some of the playmaking that he brings. And it's probably going to look pretty rough just based on the supporting cast around him. You play 3 defenses in your division that had some success last year. It's going to be ugly, but man, I would really hope they just kind of go out there and give him a half and say, hey, it might hurt, you might get hit, but that's football, and you kind of got to gut through these things. So I hope they really expand what they had him do this past week.
Yeah, I mean, coming off of speaking of backup quarterbacks, Cowboys, Rams, and watching Trey Lance out there, who is the same age as Bo Nix and probably has the same amount of career, less probably snaps during the football in college and the pros now, but Nix actually played a lot. We'll get to him. You don't get better at playing football without playing football, as Herm Edwards said on NFL Live last week. So yeah, I that was about Aaron Rodgers not playing in the rain. He was grumpy about that. But anyways, I would like to see more Drake Maye. Okay, Michael Penix. It's funny, we're going in draft order, and I was like, oh yeah, wait, Michael Penix was drafted for 4.
Did the same thing.
Forgot I do a double take. Charles, this is your account, the Atlanta Falcons. I'll just start. Again, I feel like as advertised is kind of the theme of today, but I kind of feel like all of the rookie quarterbacks looked like they did in college, and that includes Michael Penix, who flashed a lot of what we saw at Washington. Some issues with accuracy. The whole shot, beautiful, the arm strength, obviously. So what did you think of his first outing? And do you think we don't believe this is a quarterback competition, of course, but
no,
what are you hearing?
We do not. The Falcons don't think it's one either, but the fan base, oh my God. Like it just took a few throws. Cause I was, it's funny. I was out with one of my best friends this weekend and we were out in Jersey City, just by the water, and his girlfriend was with us, and she is from Atlanta. She's a big Falcons fan. She uses me for like all of her source of information on the Falcons. So she had checked out the Penix debut on Friday. And when I saw her this weekend, she was like, so what, like week 3, week 4? And I was like, in 2027? Like, what do we, I know, 2026? Like, what are we doing here? It was, I think the way you described it is perfect. It was Penix at Washington. You're going to hunt some big plays down the field. He hit a go ball. He also missed one. There were a couple like throws over the middle, but you also saw some of the stuff that had people concerned. I think with the windup, with some of the accuracy that's not deep down the field. I don't know. It looked fine. It looks fine to me. But it's not something where you see, oh man, or it's not something where you say, oh, we need to pull Kirk Cousins out of the lineup for this. Like, no. Still, they just paid him. He has not played a snap as a Falcons quarterback, so it's going to be a while before Penix gets in there. So I think it was encouraging that he didn't look lost out there. But again, it was the same exact player that we saw at Washington, and hopefully they just go out there and give him like a full game at some point just so we can see it, because I don't really see the point of playing Taylor Heineke this preseason. He fumbled the snap and didn't even try to recover it. So let's try to let's get Penix. Yeah, let's get Penix out there, and he's quiet quitting. Let's get Penix a bunch of snaps out there and keep it moving. But encouraging enough for a start. He looked the same as he did at Washington. Yeah,
he didn't look overwhelmed, but he's a mature processor. Mature, you'd hope, because he's a mature player. He looks kind of how you hope, but he handled everything. He got to progress to an in-breaker, which is like, that's the one thing I just always want to see is like, all right, when all starts coming on unraveled, do you get pressured? Are you still able to progress, or you just throw everything away? He kind of knows what he is, and that's also kind of the negative. But yeah, outside throw merchant a little bit, but he can get it. But like Charles was right, his mechanics on one, it was a play action. He had quick feet on it, and I kept looking at the route, whether it was short or not. And I don't think it was. And just because his mechanics take so long, the operation takes so long, the throw ends up like tight to the sideline and ends up being incomplete. When he throws it nice, like it's a nice dart, like outside and everything, but he runs out of room because it just takes that extra half second. How he kind of, and then we'll just see if, again, he's adapted so far. We'll just kind of continue. If he, like Charles said, if he plays a longer time, we'll see if he continues to adapt.
I was smiling when you were calling him a mature. There it is. A mature processor. I was just talking. This is extremely tangential, but I was just talking to a friend who is having a kid. And when you're over 35, they call it a geriatric pregnancy, which is, and it's so insulting. And I was saying to her, they should rebrand it as like a mature pregnancy. And I realized I'm just using football euphemisms for being old. We're like, oh yeah, he's a mature player, totally. A mature pregnancy, that probably is the scientific term. So you probably
pregnancy
won't work,
that knows the playbook.
Yeah. Had a lot of reps. Okay. Well, speaking of people who have had a lot of reps, let's talk about Nix now, and then let's sidebar McCarthy and do that in quarter. That was the quarterback battle I was teasing, because folks. It feels like a quarterback battle. And actually, the game was the most interesting game of the preseason, Vikings Raiders, because you had 2 quarterback battles on both sides, and it was a fun game. Like I thought, the Broncos. I think Nix is it's done. I don't know what they're saying about Stidham, or I don't think Zach Wilson's been kind of. God, I'll never get back the 3 months of my life I lost last year talking to Jets fans about Zach Wilson. But anyways, it's Bo Nix. Okay, so I didn't watch this one in real time because I was at the Rams Stadium when it was happening. And when I saw the reaction online, I was like, whoa, because seeing Bo Nix, lighten it up, Bo Nix. And I think that was it set me up in the wrong way to watch it, because I was like a little underwhelmed later that night relative to some of the reactions I saw. But then when I went back and watched it again this morning for NFL Live, I came away with somewhat of a positive impression, in part because I've talked about this a little bit when I've talked about the AFC West with Greg and what I want to see out of Bo Nix generally. I wanted to see Sean Payton build an offense around his skill set, and I think we got a taste of that, which is something that Payton has historically been very good at. But I don't think, Bo Nix, the Breeze comparisons drove me insane because he's such a different player. And what Sean Payton showed me, I think, is, he knows that, right? I mean, Bo Nix's qualities, his strengths, fast release, short accuracy, throwing on the move, that was all on display. I mean, the RPO component of the game I thought was interesting and something that can be developed. I thought he looked a little jittery at times, and I'm going to chart that one up to preseason week 1. But overall, guys, while I don't think it was like as, he didn't light the world on fire, maybe the way my timeline led me to believe, I do think I came away feeling some optimism for this offense. So Nate, why don't you go first? What did you think?
Oh,
no.
Yeah.
Are you about to hate?
Oh, I don't want to fully hate. I was going to just say meh. He's skittish was the first word that came to mind. Skittish.
First outing.
But he's old. It's like that when your selling point is that you're a mature.
You're going to call him a geriatric
player, a geriatric rookie. Is that you just go, you're going to be a mature processor. That's what I actually saw Caleb and even Jayden Daniels and Penix. They actually sold me on that already, because that was week 1. We're all in the same boat here, same playing field. I know coaches are different and all that, but as far as how they take to the playbook, and to me, it was just a lot of one and done reads, which is what he was in college. And that's what's concerning to me, is that it's exactly his negatives in college. And I get it. It's week 1 of preseason on a half of one game, but it's just kind of like, oh, it's more of the same. It's not like, oh yeah, what you're being sold right now is the nickel and dimer that could just be brutally efficient. But to me, as advertised, but you have to be brutally efficient, and you can't go into scramble chaos mode when there are answers there. And that's kind of what disappointed me, was that some of those creation plays, even like a third down one they scrambled on, it's like a mesh concept. He has 2 guys open, and it's a common enough concept that mesh is like one of the most common concepts you run in college, that he should have an answer there, with a clean pocket and everything. So, and some of those, what you said is that he'll dial, Sean Payton will know what to dial up, and he does. The touchdown was on an RPO, and that's great. He's good at those because he is quick to get the ball out. It's just that I don't know. Can you build an offense out of that? We haven't really seen that in the NFL recently, so that's what's scary.
You can if you have elite skill players, and I think that's kind of where I come down on Bo Nix. Is like, I've mentioned Miami. I don't think he's the same player as Tua, but I have mentioned Miami as being like, okay, like I would actually steal a lot from there, and the downfield RPOs. But it's like, but wait, they don't have that kind of speed on the roster. But if they did, I actually think Charles, with Nix's skill set, you could build something out of it, but you need players around him who can elevate.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem, right? Where you look at Bo Nix, and sure, he threw for 15 of 21 passes for 6 yards an attempt. And I feel like that's what a lot of people probably expected from him coming into the NFL. Where, especially for someone of his age, where does the growth for like explosive plays come without just adding a whole bunch of players to the offense? Because right now, the thing I felt about Bo Nix is, we get so excited about these rookie quarterbacks every single year, but like, how many times have you seen someone do that in an NFL game? It just like, it wasn't quite good enough. Like, you're still hoping for a little bit more at some point. I just think with Bo, the floor is a little bit, maybe the floor is a smidge higher, just in terms of like being able to get the ball into people's hands, but you're not as consistent a risk taker. You're not as consistent where you're just trying to get the ball down the field, because that's probably just a little bit outside his skill set. So yeah, can Bo Nix come in and be competent and complete, 68% of his passes? Yeah, but does that mean the Broncos are going to average more than like 20 a game? Because that was my question after watching him play yesterday.
I guess when I think about the Dolphins too, I'm less thinking about actually the 2024 Dolphins and thinking about even the year before Mike McDaniel joined, when they were really pushing at the ball downfield with RPO. You remember that? But I can't even remember who was calling plays. It was post Gase, pre McDaniel.
Man, the guy, he's been around forever.
Godsey?
Godsey and someone else.
Yeah.
They had
Anyways,
wasn't Chan Gailey back for one of those years?
Gailey was in there.
They were like, okay, we got our
row.
This quarterback, we're going to use RPOs to push the ball downfield. And it was actually pretty efficient, honestly, with Tua. I do wonder if, again, seeing what we saw from Nix, if you do want to really prioritize adding some sort of speed, like a fast receiver to this roster, because it's not the fastest group. Although I will say, by the way, the play where he scrambled and threw it to Sutton, you mentioned, you didn't see it on the TV broadcast. Whoo, Cortland Sutton cooked whoever that corner was.
Yes.
That was a phenomenal job by Sutton, who still has something to him. So yeah, I don't want to write off Sutton. Well, we'll see. I think with Nix, what you want to see is a little bit less of the jitteriness, a little bit more maturation is the word of the day. I just felt like, I saw the bones of something workable in there. It was not a draft pick that I loved, but I think, and you also saw, I think, a preview of what this offense is probably going to look like in the regular season. Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break, come back, and talk about the both sides of the epic quarterback battle that was Raiders Vikings. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words: Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the types of benefits only Caesars can offer: hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. Okay, let's start with the Vikings, probably the sexier side of this. This was fun, man. Like this, I just really enjoyed watching. I mean, Kevin O'Connell's such a good play caller, and you saw that on display. But it was fun from start to finish for me. Well, at least from the 2 quarterbacks, Darnold and JJ McCarthy. Let's start with JJ and then work back to the one, because Darnold only had 1 drive. So, he comes out and there's some struggles against the Raiders ones, I think, where I was trying to track who was on the field as he went on, as the game went on. Jack Jones had the awesome interception. But he sort of settled in as the game went on, made some pretty impressive throws. I feel like I'm being the optimist here. I will say this, as a guy, I liked a lot of what I saw of JJ in college: playmaking, arm strength, athleticism. Like a lot of folks, I thought he didn't really throw with touch very much. I thought he showed a little bit of touch in this one. So that impressed me. There were ups and downs, so it wasn't perfect. Some struggles against pressure, particularly early on. Charles, what did you think of his first outing? And did he show you something different from what he saw at Michigan?
I don't know if there was too much different that we saw at Michigan, because I had a weird relationship with like the JJ McCarthy eval, because I feel like when you watch it in season, just like as the college football season is going along, you're like, man, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. He is a backseat driver to a team that has like 7 offensive linemen going to the NFL Combine this year, plus a billion guys on defense, including 1st-round picks for this upcoming season. And it just didn't really seem like, well, not even didn't really, like they didn't really ask him to do a whole lot. But then you kind of start to say, all right, well, let's strip some of this away. Let's strip some of our preconceived notions about how talented this team is, and just actually see what he's trying to do, and some of the upside that's there. I think he's talented as a thrower, and he's a good athlete. I think that's probably a good thing that you haven't seen too much of him at Michigan, because you lets your imagination run wild with what's possible. But I thought that this first game, it kind of looked a little bit like if Michigan had asked JJ to do more, and maybe
Yeah.
he's capable of it. It's not like the most difficult things, because I think, like you said, Kevin O'Connell's great at scheming guys open. He had a few plays where all you have to do is just stand in there and someone's running wide open across the field and make a throw. But you still saw some of the accuracy. You still saw some of the playmaking. You saw the reasons why you're like, okay, I can get why you choose that
Yeah.
in the top 10 and trade up for it, even if there is a pretty small sample size. So I don't know how to feel about like the quarterback battle portion of this, because I feel like, especially this room right here, the three of us, we've done the Sam Darnold thing a lot over the
Not
past.
yet. No.
Let's rip
We're
that
not
seal
saying that.
off.
I'm gonna
Baby.
finish. Okay,
Let's rip
JJ
it
McCarthy,
off.
good. JJ McCarthy, good look. That was
Yes.
a good
Yes.
first step for him, and I thought he showed a little bit more than he did in Michigan.
Yeah, no, it makes sense why an offense like this, or offensive play caller like this, and I understood why Mark McCarthy had a lot of fans as I studied him. Like Charles said, when I was watching him during the season, I was doing a show with Dane Brugler throughout the season, and Dane really liked him, and I came around on him, but I was also kind of just like, okay, really? Like, okay, there's 2 throws I can like translate. Helps when you take a deep breath. The NFL season stops. And I can just watch 6 of these games, 7 of these games, and which is about the sample size of like 2 or 3 games for most other guys. But you see him do all the little things. You see him keep his eyes downfield. You see him stand tall in the pocket, move around in the pocket, and try to throw the ball. He's a good athlete, but he only scrambles when he has to, that's a good baseline. That usually means that you have a calm mind. That means you understand the play, because you're trying to find that outlet with the actual play design as opposed to just your legs. But he has athleticism to run, and you can see, no matter who's at quarterback, Darnold or McCarthy, that QB run game is going to be really good in Minnesota this year. Like I can tell they're excited to like sprinkle that in. But I also just think, yeah, you saw it. He had a nice dig throw where it's a cross progression read, and that right there was why why I became higher on McCarthy as it went along, and why you can see the starting potential here, and potentially more to grow into, is good arm progression, moves in the pocket, willing to stand in there, take a hit. And then the other one you said, throw with touch, the one he threw across field as he got hit. Those are the 2 throws.
By the way, the throw with touch, he threw it with touch, but he also he actually, I thought that was Kirk Cousins out there, because it reminded me of him, right?
Really
it was the play action throw to the left side, like he hung in there.
Yep. That's why you like him.
Yeah, that dude will take hits. Again, I keep going to this theme of as advertised, but like part of the reason why we thought they would take McCarthy was like his similarities to Cousins, frankly. And then just the fact that he was like a good fit for this offense. I think that the biggest challenge for him now is just that Sam's back, baby. No. Okay. I mean, those of us in the Darnold hive, it really, when he hit Naylor on the dagger concept, the layered ball, I feel like I got like little hairs went up on my arm, because I knew the sleeper cell was being activated in real time. But it's more than that. First of all, there were some drops on that drive. But I thought his first drive, aside from just that throw, he didn't do anything to seed that job. Maybe in the red zone could have been a little bit better, but I think the Vikings are a really fascinating position, because if Darnold continues to play at a high level, how does JJ McCarthy win the job, right? Like, because I think it was my friend Greg Rosenthal, people listen to this know him. He was like, oh, this could be like Russ and Matt Flynn, and back in 2012 when the Seahawks brought in Flynn, paid him like low end. I mean, it's the equivalent of probably $20 million today, which is more than what they gave Sam Darnold. And I remember that quarterback competition, and at some point they just flipped it and they said, all right, Russ gets to play the ones. I think it was in week 3 or something.
That sounds
but
right.
he just dramatically outplayed him. And so far, that's not really, I mean, it's just one drive, one game. But I guess, Nate, let's start with you. Like, how does this play out? Like, if you're the Vikings, how do you handle this with you've got these two quarterbacks in the building, both of whom had this really good, I thought, very good week one outing. Do you, and JJ did more of it against backups and backup to backups. Do you flip it at some point? Like, what do you do to make this a competition? Do you want it to be a competition, or do you want to feed the first part of their schedule is brutal? Do you want to just feed Darnold to them?
Well, I think you always want to keep that card to play, meaning we bench our starter and here comes the rookie. Rally,
Right.
rally, rally, rally.
Great card.
And you always got, great card to play. So I think that's why it first leads you to why you want to play the vet, because you can use that as a spark. But also, I think Darnold hasn't done anything wrong to lose this job. And I think ideally they don't want him to start. I think a lot of these coaches, they'll use the Packers example, but I think a lot of them see more benefits when these guys just get more practice reps, more game plan reps. There's a difference between training camp and week to week game prep. So I think that's they want to get them comfortable with that. Like, hey, third down, that changes every week. You got to get used to this type of workload. You got to used to these types of checks that we have to do every week. So I think they're saying in a perfect world, he never plays this season because that means things are going well. And honestly, they're set up to go well. Like, this run game is going to be more explosive. The O-line's solid. The pass catchers are great. Jalen Naylor, who you just brought up, like, they love
good.
him. Yeah. And
He
so
was really good.
and Addison looks like he's the perfect number 2 for Jefferson, who looked, I mean, and now they're designing stuff for Jefferson all over the place. So I think no matter whoever drives the ship, if they're competent, they're in the perfect kind of ecosystem. But I think that's why I don't think they're any eager to like give it to McCarthy right away, because I still think they want McCarthy to lose it before then.
I don't know.
Is this where you crap all over the Darnold hive?
Well, yeah, it's like
you can. It's fair.
We've seen this story.
Because I say this as someone who, okay, so when Sam
intervention
Darnold was
time.
intervention
Are you the
time,
friend who sees your friends relapsing and you're like, all right, I got to step in here?
And I say this as someone who used to be addicted, because it's funny because when Sam Darnold came to the NFL, I was like, I don't get this at all. This doesn't make any sense to me. Too reckless. It's fun, but it's not quite good enough. Then he gets to the Jets. I got to the Jets, and I'm like watching him in practice, and I'm watching him in some of these games, and I'm like, man, Sam Darnold's one of those quarterbacks where if you just cut up the 10 best throws, you could put those next to Josh Allen. You could put those next to Patrick Mahomes.
Chase that dragon, baby.
Right. You're chasing the dragon.
Patrick Mahomes at some point, throw.
Right. But let's say you have fun like 5 times a year, but 12 times a year, you're waking up with a huge hangover. And that's where the Sam Darnold problem is. I think Sam Darnold will probably take care of himself getting out of the starting lineup at some point,
right,
given how things have gone for him. But it's still intriguing. And the problem is, if you're Sam, you're also probably someone who's trying to get your career back on track as a starter. And unfortunately for him, he's landed with the Panthers, which, I mean, he's honestly probably the best quarterback they've had in the past 3 years over there. Then you end up in San Francisco, where you're never going to start. And now you're in Minnesota, where if JJ McCarthy looks like that, there's no reason to start Sam Darnold. And it's frustrating for him, but I just don't think we can go back down this road again.
Trade showcase for the Raiders? No.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
God. Okay. Let's hit the Raiders side of this now. Again, sort of as advertised. Aidan O'Connell, I thought looked like he did last year to me, and I talked about him a bit. We talked about the AFC West. I think what was tricky, because this is a legitimate quarterback pick. I think Antonio Pierce, I'm pretty sure, said after the game, they're going to announce the starter after next week. So they're going to let them both play a quarter. So next week is the Thunderdome for
we don't get this
Raiders.
Anymore. We don't get
no.
This
well,
is
Antonio Pierce is going to bring a lot of stuff back. I think.
True pool cue, break it over the knee moment.
Here's what I don't like about this, though. You saw good Minshew. Great.
Right.
I know I sound so hypocritical after this whole Sam Darnold thing, because
No. Have you seen how young he is?
We've seen more of Minshew in better situations than Sam Darnold, and he played well. He was feisty. The touchdown throw was a really good throw. He makes good throws. he also makes a lot of bad throws. He's an incredibly streaky quarterback, which is why he's like a terrible quarterback for a quarterback competition, because if you just hit that streak, you're going to feel good about it, but there's no consistency there. And I just don't see the upside in going with him. Because, yeah, it's just, and with Minshew, though, you could argue there's not, or from AOC, Aiden O'Connell, there's not upside there, too. He, to me, seems like a competent but capped quarterback. Was how I would describe him. Did you guys feel differently watching them at all? Did you feel like if you were Antonio Pierce, you'd be leaning one way or the other? Charlie, you go first here.
I personally, for however low stakes this quarterback battle is, I've been an Aiden O'Connell guy. I didn't really see anything that would change that from this past weekend with Minshew. I feel like you know what it is, right?
Right.
It's fine. It's been the same player since he was a rookie at Jacksonville. So you've already seen what that is. If Aiden O'Connell gets hurt or he really starts floundering, you probably feel fine about putting Minshew in. But the thing is, we all know it's just not good enough, either option, to get them to where they want to go. But at least with Aiden O'Connell, maybe there's some more upside throwing the ball down the field, and you just drafted him, so why not see what he's got? That's kind of where I'm at. Why not?
Yeah, go with a mystery box, even if it's wrapped in plaid.
Yeah,
just try it. That's how we know what Minshew is. I think that's why just the term I just always come back to. It's kind of best is what you see is like he's going to operate the offense fine, but he's not going to raise it to a new level. But he's also going to do some dumb stuff as well. But yeah, we kind of know what Minshew Mania is made of. So I kind of wanted to see O'Connell just go out there because this was one of the teams like Charles and I always said made us sad because it's like they are interesting in a lot of ways, but.
This has been my takeaway from the offseason. It was also my takeaway watching them in this preseason game. I actually think that they're a decent roster. And I kind of took me a while to get there. The defense obviously was very good last year, and watching them, man, against them, like they've got some dudes on defense. Christian Wilkins next to Max
Carlos
Crosby.
had him as a top 10 defense, and
Good Lord,
that was a great call.
But then offensively, I was really excited by how Luke Getsy, who's their new offense coordinator, used Brock Bowers. He had him on Atlanta. It was in the backfield. It was out wide on the catch and run. I think they're going to live in that 12 personnel with him, Mayer, Jacoby Meyer, who's still awesome, Devontae Adams. If you had a good quarterback, I actually think this would be a sneaky playoff team. And with Dak Prescott, baby, they're going to go. They're going to win 12 games. Team. Let's go.
This is the Dak team. Oh, yeah. He might get ownership based on the parties present.
I want him to hit free agency so bad just to see what that looks like. Just to see how fast they trip over themselves to sign him.
Oh, you said it might start with a 6, might start with a 7.
This would be my favorite destination. So, we'll see with the quarterback battle. I think, though, it is a year to just kind of focus on the young players. When they did the Bowers draft pick, I was like, I think it was mostly because I wanted them to get Penix. I'm not going to lie. I thought they were going to get Penix.
I would have been cool with that. Like, that would have been like way more kind of like just, yeah, of course. Yeah.
All right. We're going to wrap with a segment I'm calling Small Sample Size Kings. Each we're going to do one because we've got a little bit long. Just a guy in the preseason who impressed you in admittedly a very small sample size. Nate, why don't you go first?
I'm going to use Lucas Van Ness from the Packers defensive end because
he was out there for a while.
Yeah, he played a lot of snaps, but ended up at the end. But he was dominant in the first preseason game, but you're really seeing him put it together. A lot of flashes, bendy. He's a freak. His nickname's Hercules for a reason. But actually, I just want to use that as the whole Packers defensive line. Small sample size. I was really impressed by them, especially the interior guys, Carl Brooks, Wyatt, all these guys, along with the other guys that they have, Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary and stuff. But yeah, I'm digging the Packers defensive line, even if it's just small sample size.
Charles.
I'm going to go with Leonard Taylor from the Jets. Leonard's got an interesting backstory. He was almost a near consensus #1 high school prospect when he came out of high school. He went to Miami, wasn't quite actualized. I remember I texted Nate a bunch about this during draft season. When I watched this game versus Texas A&M, it was one of the worst games for
undraftable
linemen, like totally undraftable. And he did go undrafted. But you sometimes have these guys, and it's not very often, where at one point they are considered a first round pick. Maybe it's just due to high school recruiting backgrounds, what have you. Senior year happens. I think he only had 1 sack, like 1 tackle for loss last year, and he played like that. But then you get to the NFL, and maybe you have coaches that are a little bit more equipped to get the most out of you. And this weekend against the Commanders, that looked like someone who was like the number 1 high school recruit at some point. Is he going to crack the rotation or even make the team? I'm not sure. But as far as developmental options go for a defensive tackle for a team that's really been good at developing defensive linemen, I think that he ended up in the perfect spot for himself.
All right, I'll continue the defensive trend. I was going to talk about Jordan Whittington, who played in my game, but I felt like that maybe it was a little too random, I guess. And I also didn't want to do the next Puka Nacua thing. Yeah, random. I'm going to go with Nate Wiggins, and I'm going to start with the update that he apparently is fine because he got hurt after playing a drive with the Baltimore Ravens. They said it's not a serious injury. So that was, he had like a shoulder injury. And they have said it's not serious, day to day. So, based on the small sample size, he is on track to average about 32 PBUs a game. No, man. I mean, he just looked awesome. He was a player who, like, I think I was like very nervous. I almost like chickened myself out of being super high on him because I loved his tape. And I was like, dude, he looks so good in man coverage. He's so good playing off. His eyes are fantastic. He's physical. And then, but I was like, I was
Emmanuel Forbes
because of his size. Yes, because he's skinny and he did not play skinny. I'll tell you that. I mean, the way he closed on some of those balls, there was nothing fluky about the passes defense. So if he can be that dude for them and allows Marlon Humphrey to play the nickel, that's a huge development for this Ravens defense. So that I feel like is a very, very meaningful player for the Baltimore Ravens this year.
Love that.
All right. Well, we'll be talking about the Ravens a lot more. Actually, this week, because I'm doing the AFC North and then the NFC North next week as we wrap up our division previews. But in the meantime, if you guys haven't already, go subscribe to Football 301. How often do you guys come out?
Twice a week. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Similar to me. All right. Well, listen to my podcast first. Then when you're done,
pretty please.
No, this is great. Thank you guys so much for having me. You can check this podcast out on youtube.com/@MinaKimes. And I'll be back later in the week.